Hey folks, Mark Levin here. Now, before we dive in today's episode, I want to talk about something truly valuable, protecting your financial future with gold. It's called diversification. Now, for that, I only trust Advantage Gold. They're the real deal with 5-star service and a sterling reputation. So give them a call today. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. Trust me, you'll thank yourself in the future. Now let's get to the show. Results may vary. Consult with your financial professional.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. So I guess now we'll have 5 days a week, maybe 10 days, of Washington, the Washington media, the Washington grifters, the operators, the pollsters, the guests on network and cable TV, debating over whether there should be another debate, Mr. Producer. Now, ladies and gentlemen, does it matter if there's another debate? I don't care that the Democrats say they want another debate or not. Don't you want, at this point, the campaign to get serious? Donald Trump keeps talking about the issues. Kamala Harris doesn't want to get anywhere near the issues. The media don't want to get anywhere near the issues unless they're distorting Donald Trump's positions. And so you have all these commentators, they're the same damn people all the time. You have all these failed politicians like Chris Christie and other bloated blowhards who throw in their comments, Liz Cheney. Who cares? In the real world, in America's streets, at home at night when people are looking over their bills, or at breakfast when somebody's going off to work, or people are trying to figure out how to make ends meet. Do you think they give a damn if there's another debate? Kamala Harris had her shot. And I know she's running around. She's giddy because she didn't fall on her face. She even surprised herself. But giddy about what? People who claim to be undecided voters are still undecided. They don't know what she stands for. Because it's a two-track effort on the behalf of that campaign, which is she's a Marxist Islamist, but she doesn't want to reveal her position on the issues because either she shows herself to be a flip-flopper, and she's not really a flip-flopper, she's a liar, or she has to be pressed on her positions. She doesn't want any of that. So they figure, look, she's winning anyway, but she's not. It's a dead heat. That's what it is. And look what they've done to Donald Trump for it to be a dead heat. In the lead up to this election, they've tried to throw him in prison. They've tried to bankrupt him. They've tried to smear his name. They've tried to force him to spend enormous sums of money of his campaign funds on legal fees. Look what they've done. They swapped out Biden for Harris, the most undemocratic move in American history. Harris slipped into the nomination process without even having an open convention. They did it virtually. Now she wants to slip into the office of the presidency. Now she claims, I want another debate. He's running. Who gives a damn what you want? But you and I, we know what she is. That's why it's important for us to spread the word. But I want to talk about some of these reprobates in the Republican Party who basically have left the party and endorsed Harris. And I want you to think about that a second. You have Republicans who have sought your vote, who have sought your support in the past, endorsing Kamala Harris. It was the gravest danger this nation has ever faced. Who don't care what's going on the border, the slavery, the rape, the murder. Who don't care about the fentanyl coming into this country. Otherwise, why would they endorse her? Who don't care about the wars going on and the fact that Kamala Harris is an anti-Semite Islamist who's going to withhold even more weapons from Israel. They don't care. They don't care about the waiter and the waitress and the other folks out there who are really struggling. The middle class. People who work with their hands. They don't care what 4 years of a Harris presidency would do to the country. So they want to contribute to the centralization of power. They want to contribute to the monopolization of our political party system by further empowering the Democrat Party. There's a very good piece in a site called issuesinsights.com. Liz Cheney, who recently endorsed Kamala Harris, a person Cheney described as a radical liberal just 4 years ago, well, she flip-flops too, now says there's absolutely no chance that Ronald Reagan would support Donald Trump. I campaigned for Ronald Reagan in 76 and 80. I worked for 8 years in his administration. I wasn't his closest friend, that's for sure, but I worked with him and I knew him and the people who worked with him and knew him. I don't pretend to speak for Ronald Reagan, but she sure as hell can't. She's a Bushy. And I might add, you'll notice, the Bush people, the Romney people, the McCain people, although not all, by the way, but a lot, they're the ones who are undermining Trump and in some cases endorsing Harris. A few Reaganites here and there, but the Reaganites, all in all, support Trump. Attorney General Edwin Meese, along with Attorney General Mukasey, filed a brief in support of Trump and against the independent counsel, the very existence of the independent counsel. Most of the Reaganites I know are supporting Trump and actively doing so. And so they point out there she has it exactly backwards, that is Liz Cheney. It's people like Liz Cheney and the cabal of other never-Trumpers who never would have supported Reagan when he ran in 1980. This is very interesting because I said this in preparation for my show coming up Saturday night on Fox, which will be a brand new show. Donald Trump doesn't stand for any of the things that Ronald Reagan did, Cheney said. It's another place where I would urge my Republican colleagues to really look at Donald Trump's policies, to really look at the danger that he presents, Cheney said in an interview on ABC News this week. And notice, they can't get enough of her on the media. She and the Kate Mayorka, Chris Christie. Cheney's claim that Reagan didn't support Trumpian policies is demonstrably false, and I agree with that. In his first term, Trump enacted pro-growth tax cuts, started eliminating regulations, built up the nation's military after years of neglect by Democrats. He appointed conservatives to the Supreme Court. He championed the working class. In Reagan's first term, he did likewise. Reagan called the Heritage Foundation 1980 Mandate for Leadership a massive guide to conservative policymaking. The Bible for guiding his administration, and handed it out to every cabinet official. Trump enacted 2/3 of the recommendations contained in the Heritage 2016 mandate. Trump enacted protectionist tariffs. Well, so did Reagan. In fact, Reagan imposed a 100% tariff on certain Japanese electronics in 1987 and forced that country to accept restraints on auto exports. He put limits on steel imports, raised tariffs on Canadian lumber, and so on. What's more, Trump signed free trade deals with friendly countries and had several in the works at the end of his term, which Biden abandoned. And Reagan was hated by all the same people who hate Trump, the media, Democrats, establishment Republicans. And I want to remind you, it took Reagan 3 shots to become the nominee of the Republican Party. He was blocked by these very same Bush-Cheney type milquetoast RINO Republicans. He was blocked. They said he couldn't win. He won 2 of the greatest landslides in American history, but he had to fight his way through the Republican establishment and ruling class. He was described as a dangerous right-wing radical, a friend of tyrants, a heartless budget cutter. They said he was woefully unprepared to be president and played fast and loose with the facts. And when he was running against Jimmy Carter, Reagan was hardly all sunshine and roses, as he's often depicted. During that campaign, Reagan denounced mediocre leadership that drifts from one crisis to the next, eroding our will and our purpose. Even now, the left despises Reagan, calling him a hyper-nationalist whose worldview grew out of the paranoia jingoism of post-war America. It led him to support fascists in Central America and see moderate liberals like JFK as dangerous radicals, quote-unquote. Witness to the reaction to the Reagan movie. Elitist movie critics, the sort of people never Trumpers want to rub elbows with, uniformly panned Reagan. Just 20% of its critics liked the movie, according to Rotten Tomatoes, because how dare anyone make a movie that treats Reagan with respect? But moviegoers loved it. 98% gave it a thumbs up. There's also the fact that the vast numbers of never-Trumpers, who all claim to oppose Trump because he was abandoning Reaganism, have since outed themselves as not just establishment Republicans, but straight-out liberals. They supported Biden, turned a blind eye to his disastrous presidency, and now backing radical liberal Harris. These people are not conservatives. They've never been conservatives. There's no question that Reagan was more charming than Trump, she writes, or they write, had a better wit and a more pleasant demeanor, unlike Trump and every never-Trumper as well. Reagan didn't attack fellow Republicans, and he was much better at winning the crowd. Trump's approval rating has almost never topped 50%. Nevertheless, we have no doubt that had they been around in 1980, the never-Trumpers of today would have denounced Reagan in 1980 for the same reasons they are denouncing Trump, and would have urged Republicans to re-elect Jimmy Carter. I believe this 100%. 100%, because Reagan was opposed by the Republican establishment. They fought him in California. They fought him for the presidential nomination. They all got behind Ford. Bush ran against him in 1980 to try and derail him, and almost did. But Reagan won on top. And even after he left office, Bush 41, kinder and gentler, raised taxes. He reversed course on the Reagan agenda, and he destroyed his presidency. As a matter of fact, he was a one-term president. He got elected because of Reagan's coattails in the first place. All that said, the same Republican establishment, the same Republican ruling class, plus the Democrat establishment and the Democrat ruling class, plus the Democrat Party billionaire oligarchs and some of the Republican billionaire oligarchs, not many, but some, they've all coalesced. They're all colluding. And they have been from day one to destroy Donald Trump by hook or by crook, by lawfare, by impeachment, by personal smears, by bankruptcy, and even now. And even now. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The cracks in our economy are widening by the day. We've got a labor market that's cooling faster than expected. Unemployment jumped to the highest since the end of 2021. The market could be in free fall any day as investors panic over a potential recession. Now, some bank stocks are getting hammered as fears of a downturn grow. Even the Fed is talking about rate cuts to prop things up. In uncertain times like these, you need a solid plan for your wealth. That's where gold comes in. It's been the ultimate safe haven for as long as we've used money. And when it comes to gold, I trust Advantage Gold. They're a top-rated American gold company and can help you protect your hard-earned money. Call Advantage Gold now at 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit and to see if you qualify for $1,000 in free silver. Don't wait. Call 800-900-8000 today. That's 800-900-8000. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. That's 800-900-8000. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not a big tariff fan, as you know. I've never have been, but it's a little more complicated than people suggest. Number one, McKinley used tariffs. He was one of the great presidents at the end of the 1800s, early 1900s, before he was assassinated. There was tremendous economic growth. Coolidge used tariffs. Reagan used tariffs. Of course, Trump uses tariffs. The three most conservative presidents in the last 100 years would be Coolidge, Reagan, and Trump. That's right, Trump. And I'll get to that in a little bit. But the fact of the matter is, I view trade a little differently than the most protectionists, populists, free marketeers, and so forth. I believe in free markets when it comes to free countries. I believe in free trade when it comes to countries that believe in free trade. I do not believe in free trade with communist China, fascistic Russia, the Islamist Nazi regime in Iran. In other words, I don't think it's just an ideological knee-jerk event that we should practice with every country. We shouldn't arm the enemy to destroy us. I believe in export controls to these countries, very severe export controls, because number one, I believe in national security. We shouldn't use our wits, we shouldn't use our labor, mental and physical, to arm the enemy. And so radical libertarians disagree with me. I don't much care. I'm just making the point that I have no problem with tariffs against China, tariffs against countries that really are building up their military to destroy us or to choke us off economically. We're not supposed to be blind about these things. And yet when it comes to other countries, I believe we should have free trade. Now, what if these other countries have spent years screwing us? That is, putting high tariffs on our products while we have no tariffs on theirs. Well, I agree with Reagan. You can negotiate, use diplomacy, but at some point you got to put an end to it. And that's why he put 100% tariff on car imports from Japan, because they would not accept American vehicles. Okay. You know, whether it's a political war, an economic war, a real war, you can't surrender. And so the base ideology, that is the base philosophy, is yes, free market capitalism. That's me. But then you look at certain situations. That's why God gave us a brain. And you reason through those situations. China? No, China's the enemy. No, I have no problem with tariffs on China. Not at all. Okay. Canada's screwing us on milk products. I've got no problem there. We've tried over and over again, so Trump put his foot down. And we also do things on our side. We subsidize all kinds of industries. We subsidize the mushroom industry. We subsidize dairy industries. We subsidize all kinds of things. I'm not getting into this issue. I'm just making the point that if you're a real so-called free trader, you would oppose all of that too, which gives us a benefit over a lot of foreign countries. I'm not big on subsidies. Period. I don't like it. But nonetheless, these things get a little bit more complicated than people think. Donald Trump is and was far more conservative than George H.W. Bush, far more conservative than George W. Bush, far more conservative than Richard Nixon, far more conservative than Romney and McCain and the late Bob Dole, who was a very, very good man. He was far more conservative than Dwight Eisenhower. I'm not talking about war and peace. I'm talking about a non-war president. Far more conservative than virtually any other Republican president. This is Mark Levin with an urgent message. We are living in grave and dark economic times that are going to get worse. We just saw an abysmal jobs report while unemployment shot up to the highest level since the end of 2021. Meanwhile, the stock market looks like a gamble. Many banks are getting crushed as recession fears mount. The S&P Banks Index fell 2.4% in a single day. That's a lot. Regional banks fell nearly 3%. That's even more. These are bad signs. Even the Fed is talking about rate cuts. You need to protect your wealth. That's where diversification and gold comes in. It's been a bedrock of wealth preservation for centuries. And the best company I know of is Advantage Gold. Their experts can help you protect your savings from economic chaos. Call now, 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit and see if you qualify for $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Don't wait. Call now. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
Mark Levin, an unapologetic patriot and unapologetic constitutionalist. You can reach him at 877-381-3811.
You know, I really wish, I guess I'm a bit of a Pollyanna, but I know it won't happen, that the media would spend more time focused on the issues of the candidates rather than on debates, and polls. I just do. The polls right now tell us nothing. It's tied. The power rankings they talk about. 2 states have slipped from lean Republican to now even. Why? Because they moved 1.5%? I mean, half of it doesn't even make any sense. New York Times says undecided voters are still undecided after the debate, but Harris numbers moved ever so slightly. Okay, so what does all that mean? Nothing. Nothing. This is an election about leadership. It's an election about substance. It's an election about we, the people, what we want. In Washington and New York and L.A. and their media, this is all they can talk about. It's all they can talk about. It's all anyone will talk about. It's pathetic. It's almost like they fill time. And so while others will spend mind-numbing time debating the debates, whether there should be debates, not debates, we just had a debate, and Kamala Harris did not reveal herself. She didn't reveal herself. So we should have another debate so they can run around and say, oh, she won another debate. Who cares? Now, let me tell you a little secret. We talk about these things. I'm not hyperbolic. I tell you the truth. I use my noggin. I use my knowledge of history and so forth. There's much at stake in this election, including how you get to raise your children and grandchildren. That's correct. Including what kind of home you're free to purchase, because they don't want to build any more single-family homes. Including what kind of automobile you'll be able to drive. They do not want you driving a vehicle that uses gasoline and oil anymore. This will change your lives in an exceedingly negative way. They're going to put millions of people out of work as they de-industrialize this country, degrowth this country. Any labor union boss in the private sector who is endorsing the Democrats is endorsing the suicide of the jobs of the people they represent, all blue-collar workers. They will destroy trucking because it's impossible for trucking to be efficient with massive batteries that take up 1/3 to 40% of the vehicle's capacity. It just doesn't make sense and it won't work. You can expect shortages, and that includes shortages of food, because central decision-making, central planning, re-engineering society fails every time, and it will fail bigly in the United States of America. You think you have it tough now, you're going to have it much worse. You're going to have significant inflation. Those pensions you have, whether they're Social Security or whether they're private pensions or both, they'll be meaningless. Meaningless. Medicare will go broke. It cannot possibly keep up with the expenses that are created by government-run health care, which includes everybody and also includes illegal aliens. Medicare is an insurance program. It's not intended to be a welfare program for every Tom, Dick, and Emilio who comes over the border. But there you have it. The voting system will be a joke. It'll be a Potemkin voting system. They control all avenues of government. They will make sure that illegal aliens become citizens, that they get to vote, that they have chain migration, and that the nation is fundamentally altered from within without any chance, elections or no elections, of fixing it. The bureaucracy will get twice the size, with twice the muscle. The IRS will be used as a domestic muscle operation to threaten every small business, to threaten every citizen if they don't comport and comply with what the government tells them to do. In terms of free speech, you already got a little taste of it under Harris-Biden. Your speech is going to be monitored. They will determine whether it's misinformation or disinformation. Your social media posts will be monitored, tracked. Data will be kept on your public comments and your public thoughts. It's already started. That's what's going to happen. This is totalitarianism. There are different levels of totalitarianism, but it is nonetheless totalitarianism. It isn't what the nation was founded upon. We're supposed to be a free people with free will. Read your Declaration, read your Constitution. The central government was supposed to have a very minor role. This is why I don't give a damn anymore about these debates over debates or the polls or anything else. Everything is on the line. How you raise your children and grandchildren, where you can travel, how far you can travel, what you can use to travel, where you can live, what kind of home you can have. I mean, everything is on the table. And most of this will be done without legislation, because legislation, you see, is a little too messy. They actually have to get votes. It'll be done through the federal massive bureaucracy. The Leviathan, as one great writer put it, the administrative state, as most intellectuals put it, but the tyranny of a massive bureaucracy that will issue regulations as if they're laws, that will have the power of laws, that will have penalties, fines, and jail time, strict liability. And you will have no say whatsoever. It won't matter if you vote. It won't matter if you protest. It won't matter if you lobby your member of Congress. None of it will matter. Things are changing very, very fast in this country, and for the worst. Very fast. You're going to see, with the election of the Democrats, the growth of anti-Semitism in the streets. Democrats, Jewish Democrats, who vote Democrat, you're voting for your own suicide. There's simply no question about it. The universities and the colleges will continue to be breeding grounds of Marxism and Islamism. So far, under the Democrats, they've done nothing to cut off the funding from Iran, Qatar, Hamas, and other enemy terrorist states and organizations, and they have no intention of doing it. It'll get worse. The open borders will continue to import people who hate America, will continue to import people into this country who will not follow our laws but are criminals coming out of the prisons of third world nations. You see what's happened simply in the last 3.5 years. We've never seen anything like it. And what will happen in the next 4 years will be appalling. And so they want us to focus on debates about debates. They want us to focus on polling, the power numbers, or whatever it is. Ladies and gentlemen, if you allow the media to pull you around by the nose, to focus on everything and nothing that matters, we will lose. And we will lose our liberty. And we will lose our lifestyles. And I'm not kidding. She talks about a wealth tax. A wealth tax. Do you think a wealth tax is just for the wealthy? Is that how it works in Venezuela? Is that how it works in Cuba? Is that how it works in North Korea? Of course not. You want to control a country, you control the people. The people in our country are the middle class. If you have a wealth tax for a billionaire, you can have a wealth tax for a cop, for a firefighter, for an electrician. Nothing will stop it. Once it starts, it doesn't stop. There is no end. A wealth tax on your home. Pay up or you lose your home. A wealth tax on your bank account. You either give us 30% or you lose your bank account. Pay attention, America. I know what I'm talking about. I don't care. I don't care what these chihuahuas nipping at my heels have to say about me on their stupid-ass websites. I don't care. If people want talk radio to be more about jokesters and tap dancing and all the rest of it. No. This is a crucial time in American history. Right now, right here, this place. This place. This is Radio Free America. Right here. Everything's on the line. Everything. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The cracks in our economy are widening by the day. We've got a labor market that's cooling faster than expected. Unemployment jumped to the highest since the end of 2021. The market could be in free fall any day as investors panic over a potential recession. Now, some bank stocks are getting hammered as fears of a downturn grow. Even the Fed is talking about rate cuts to prop things up. In uncertain times like these, you need a solid plan for your wealth. That's where gold comes in. It's been the ultimate safe haven for as long as we've used money. And when it comes to gold, I trust Advantage Gold. They're a top-rated American gold company and can help you protect your hard-earned money. Call Advantage Gold now at 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit and to see if you qualify for $1,000 in free silver. Don't wait. Call 800-900-8000 today. That's 800-900-8000. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. That's 800-900-8000. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. You know, it's hard to believe in the greatest nation on the face of the earth, which has fought 2 world wars, which has fought the most horrendous civil war that any nation has ever fought, that has the smartest people on the planet, the most diverse population on the planet, that has raised mankind to levels unimagined, that there are enough people in this country that fall for this hoax of Kamala Harris. At a time like this, when the war clouds are gathering above our country, at a time like this, when Venezuela gangs are taking over apartment complexes, when our little girls are being mutilated and raped and beaten and murdered, it's hard to believe that when we have a Democrat Party that wants to tell us how to raise our children, a vice presidential nominee in the Democrat Party who believes the state has the final say on whether your child loses their genitalia or not. Think about this. A party that has destroyed women's sports. A party that's destroying our currency, that's destroying the economic base of the country with endless spending. A nominee for that party, who is the biggest buffoon. I don't care if she can memorize her lines. Any lawyer can memorize their lines. Any lawyer knows how to. Who cares? And yet the most radical ever, she hopes to slip into the Oval Office. They've raised more money than any 2 candidates have in American history. Why is that? Where's this money coming from? It's coming from the oligarchs. They know they can control her. They're not about liberty and representative government and conservatism and free markets. They're about power. Time to understand, we're not talking about capitalists here. We're talking about oligarchs. Oligarchs. Why was it that among the first things Harris and Biden did is they expanded the IRS? To frighten you. And when the time comes, they have every intention of doing that. As the federal workforce gets bigger and bigger and richer, there's too much at stake. There's always too much at stake as far as I'm concerned. Well, there's a big fight going on in Congress right now, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. The Speaker of the House is a good man, Mike Johnson, and the Republicans in the House, as well as the Republicans in the Senate, they want to add a little rider to a continuing resolution that would say that you're required to demonstrate that you're an actual American citizen if you want to vote. Does that seem radical to you, America? You know, 50 years ago, that was not an issue. 25 years ago, it wasn't an issue. Apparently, it's an issue today, because why undermine the open borders policies of the Democrats and all the effort they've put into flooding our country with illegal aliens so they can vote? You can't prove that, Mark. I'm proving it right now. They will not agree to a federal law that requires every voter to show that they're an American citizen or to have a driver's ID that is based on them showing the state that they were an American citizen, a birth certificate or a passport, something of that nature. The Democrats are fighting it. They're opposed to a voter ID. The only reason you oppose a voter ID is because you're a crook. is because you don't believe in fair elections. But look at all the propaganda. The propaganda is, can you prove it? Can you prove it? Why, do I have subpoena power? Well, then why are you saying it? Because it's a matter of logic. When you have an open border like this with tens of millions of illegal aliens coming in from all over the world, you're going to get terrorists, you're going to get criminal gangs, you're going to get murders and rapists and fentanyl, and that's what you got. And when you have an open border like this with tens of millions of illegal aliens coming in, and more blue states, hello, Democrat states, Democrat cities, Democrat towns are not worried about voter ID, then obviously they're counting on illegal aliens to vote. We're not stupid here. We can read the tea leaves, especially when they're slapping you in the face. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. I'm going to say something a little different. You ready? Ready, Mr. Producer? I want you to have a mindset in this election that is selfish. What is in the best interests of your family? When you go to vote, I want you to think about what is in the best interest of my family. Who is going to create an environment, create circumstances where I can achieve, where I can be a breadwinner, where life is not so difficult, where, yes, we have bills, but I'm not worried every time I open them, that I can pay down my credit card. Who is going to help me? I'm not talking about government welfare handouts. I'm talking about hard-working Americans who don't rely on government for handouts. The people who make this country run. Not the country that is the government that runs the people. I want you to be selfish. Who can I vote for who will tame inflation? Who will I vote for who will bring interest rates down? Who can I vote for who will just make life a little bit more pleasant, a little bit easier? Who can I vote for who I know will try to address what's going on our streets, the criminality? Who can I vote for who I can trust to seal that border so my kids or my grandkids or others don't die from fentanyl? Or to put an end to this horrendous slavery of children and women on the border? Who can I vote for to help us? To keep Venezuelan gangs out of our apartment complexes? To keep MS-13 off our streets? Who can I vote for who will improve my way of life and the way of life for my children? Who can I vote for who will help improve the educational standards in our schools? Who will make school choice possible so are my children and my children's children have a shot at a real education, at a real school? Who can I vote for who, rather than trying to figure out ways to tax me, to tax my labor, will cut my taxes? Who did it before and who's talking about cutting right now? Tips. Donald Trump just announced that he will cut all taxes on overtime, all taxes on Social Security, all taxes on tips. That's aimed at average Americans. That's aimed at working people who are having difficulty making ends meet. So I want you to think about this in a different way. Who can I vote for who will help my family and me? Now, here's the thing. I don't want to get philosophical about this because I want to stay granular, if you don't mind. By doing so, you'll be helping the nation. By doing so, you're a patriot. That is, you'll be voting for somebody who'll bring normalcy back to the country. We have abnormalcy going on in our streets, in our colleges and universities. And who can I vote for who will get these colleges and universities under control now that they're full-throated Marxists and Islamists, who will cut federal funding? Who can I vote for who will stare down the communist Chinese before World War III breaks out, who will help Israel defeat its terrorist enemies? Who can I vote for who will put an end to this insanity that men are women and women are men, and there's no such thing as women's sports, and only use the word women if you're talking about Kamala Harris, and then under no circumstances? Who can I vote for who will bring safety, prosperity, opportunity to my family and me? Kamala Harris talks about the future because she can't talk about her past. It's disastrous. Talks about the future because she can't talk about her politics. It's a disaster. Talks about debating on debates. Who cares? Talks about all kinds of fluffy, nebulous, ambiguous, meaningless nonsense. Throws around words that have been poll tested. They talk about appearances, how she appeared, how she handled herself. I don't give a damn. Do you really? When you sit down to pay your bills, do you really care? And so I want you to have a different mindset this election. A mindset that nobody else is suggesting to you. You have every right to vote on how this individual, this president, would affect your life, because they do. How they'll affect the financial well-being of your family, because they do. Will help you put food on the table and gasoline in your car without having to make difficult choices, because this vote matters. It won't make it so difficult and complicated to decide where to send your kids, or where they should decide, to go to school. And a lot of people are now dealing with that quagmire. Normalcy. We want normalcy back. That's what we want. We don't want CRT. We don't want DEI. We don't want the 1619 Project. We don't want the Marxists in charge and the Islamists in our streets. Burning the American flag, if I may place a footnote on all of this. The Supreme Court has held and will hold that that is constitutional. But you can, in fact, amend the Constitution. One of the people who sought to amend the Constitution to punish burning the American flag was Orrin Hatch. Orrin Hatch was, in many ways, a constitutional expert. He spent 40 years on the Senate Judiciary Committee, and this was his passion. And he would introduce this amendment repeatedly. We can get behind that amendment. The American people don't want it, they don't want it. The states don't want it, they don't want it. But the idea that it's not a worthwhile endeavor, oh, you can't do that, it's unconstitutional. Well, Constitution has an amendment clause. Actually, one clause, two methods for amendment, as we've talked about, Article 5. So that's a footnote. But I want you to vote in a way that is quote-unquote selfish. Let me tell you something. On the other side, the Marxist Islamist side, the Democrat Party side, the left, they always vote for what they want. Here's the difference. They not only vote for what they want, they vote for what they want to take from you. That's the difference between you and me and them. I don't want to take anything from them. They earn it, they should keep it. They want to take from you, even though they haven't earned it. And their masterminds want to take from you so they can redistribute wealth, rejigger society, change human nature. This is the nature of totalitarianism, whether it's dressed up as Marxism, whether it's dressed up as fascism, whether it's dressed up as Kamala Harris-ism. You need to be selfish in this election. You need to not worry about all the gibberish and the blabbermouths who go on about debates. I don't mind discussing debates once they've occurred. Now we're supposed to debate whether there should be another debate. It's like the The State of the Union, where you spend 10 days talking about what's going to be in it, what might be in it, did this guy pick his nose or scratch his ass or whatever. Who cares? And nobody can remember the last State of the Union. Can you remember it, Mr. Producer? Can anybody tell me 3 great things, 3 profundities that came out of the State of the Union? No. And nobody's going to remember this debate in 2 weeks either. It's the issues. Kamala Harris won't tell you, working Americans, middle-class Americans, she won't tell you what she stands for because she's going to steal your money, she's going to regulate your life, she's going to control what's in your house, what kind of house you have, and she's going to come between you and your children. That's what the teachers' union is all about. That's what she's going to do. That border's going to be wide open. It won't matter that there's Venezuelan gangs here, that they take over your neighborhoods. It won't matter that MS-13 is here. That's perfectly fine. You know why? Marx told us why. That's the price you pay. That's the price you pay for Marxism. A little bit of despotism, he said. It's the way it goes. Because they want to empower their party once and for all. A monopoly party once and for all. How do I know this? California. That's how I know it. She comes out of that entire political environment. A Republican can't win their statewide. Sorry, California Republicans, if their life depended on it. A state that elected Ronald Reagan? Ronald Reagan, we get 30% of the vote, 35% of the vote in California today. Why? Because it's been depopulated of the people who used to live there. It's been repopulated and, quote unquote, as the New York Times put it, reshaped by immigration, mostly illegal immigration, chain migration. They changed the voting system to make it much, much more difficult for Republicans to win, because once they had some control over the instrumentalities of state government, they used it to crush the other party. So they have what I call these Potemkin elections, where you have opposition, but not really. So there's a Republican Party, there's other parties, really good people who run for office. I'm not trying to dispirit people. I'm telling people the truth all over the country. And we go through the motions. Is that what you want for America? You want California for America? Well, if you elect Kamala Harris, this is what she comes out of. This is her environment. That's what you're going to get. And I'm going to tell you something. 4 more years of this, we can't survive it. The country will be completely different. That's the way it is. It's going to be completely different. And because they will change the instrumentalities of government, they will change the institutions of government, they will pack the courts with Chunkin types and people like that, Mershon types. They will pack the courts. There'll be nowhere to go. They want to change the Supreme Court, turn it into a Democrat Party Politburo so it rubber stamps whatever they want. Folks, listen to me. I'm sure I've got some PDs out there saying, this guy, he's too negative. We need to replace him with a happy face. I don't know. It's possible. But listen to me while you can, because I'm telling you the truth. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
I'm going to let you in on a little wireless trick that can cut your cell phone bill in half every single month. Other major carriers want you to believe you need unlimited data so they can overcharge you. Here's the fact. Most of you are buying way more data than you'll ever need and you'll ever use. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, only charges you for data you actually want. Listen to this. For $25 a month, you can get unlimited talk, text, and 5 gigs of data plus mobile hotspot. Do you know what you can do with 5 gigs of data? You can browse the internet for 135 hours, stream 1,000 songs, or watch 10 hours of video. Folks, stop overpaying for wireless. Get 5G coverage with Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin. Switching is painless. It's easy. There's no contract, no activation fee. You can even keep your phone and your number. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month on top of all the other savings when you sign up with Pure Talk. Benjamin Netanyahu is hated because he's a brilliant leader, statesman. Israel, I don't know where they'd be today without him, despite the radicals and leftists that constantly try to topple him. They come out in the streets, several 100,000, and the media wants you to believe, and they want you to believe that they represent the majority of the state of Israel. They absolutely do not. The Likud party is still the majority party, and Netanyahu is still the leading statesman, politician in the state of Israel. Today, they undertook a massive attack on Iranian positions in Syria, missile positions. After a heavy dose of bombing, they sent in their special forces to take out and capture individuals. These are Iranians that are using Syria as a platform to attack Israel and to attack their jets. At the same time, they've been piece by piece dismantling Hezbollah's infrastructure, their military infrastructure in Lebanon, as they continue to fight in Gaza and are taking up a new strategy in Gaza too. They're going after and they are hunting down every single leader of Hamas right now, and they're able to do it because of all the work they've done before. This is a remarkable people, a remarkable country, a remarkable army, the IDF, that doesn't get the credit that it deserves. Our own military, mostly retired, mostly who worked in Republican administrations, they'll tell you that what they're doing there is remarkable. And they're doing it despite the fact that, you know, ladies and gentlemen, let me say this. Harris is the biggest Israel hater of any candidate to ever run for president. And you know it, and I know it, and she knows it. And when Donald Trump mentioned it during the debate, her eyes poked out of her head like she was being, smeared. There's currently an arms embargo on Israel. 7 major weapon systems are being withheld, as well as jet fighters. They're surrounded. They're under attack. They're fighting back on 7 fronts. The Russians are arming the Iranians. The Chinese are arming the Iranians. Turns out the Taliban's arming Hamas with our equipment that Biden left there. And so Israel is in a very difficult position. And this administration is withholding systems, armaments from them. And she dares to say that she's always supported Israel. She is appointed around her, and I'm going to put a list together one day, of Jew haters, of self-hating Jews, of Islamists, of Hamas supporters like you're not going to believe. She's already done it. And she said if she's elected president, she's going to set up a committee or a commission that is going to reevaluate America's relationship with Israel. Now, I'm talking all over the country, in every major metropolitan area. There are many, many Jewish people in New York, in Philadelphia, in Baltimore, in Los Angeles, in Detroit, in Chicago. You better pay attention. You in particular, you better pay attention. This isn't about party. This is about right versus wrong. She is the worst. You've got to read between the lines. It's not only what she says, but right now it's what she doesn't say. Tell me, why did she meet secretly with the Jew-hating mayor of Dearbornistan, Michigan? Why is it that Tlaib and Omar and AOC and Sanders and all the other Jew haters, why is it that they are silent? They're not criticizing her for her so-called pro-Israel statement. I'm going to let you in on a little wireless trick that can cut your cell phone bill in half every single month. Other major carriers want you to believe you need unlimited data so they can overcharge you. Here's the fact. Most of you are buying way more data than you'll ever need and you'll ever use. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, only charges you for data you actually want. Listen to this. For $25 a month, you can get unlimited talk, text, and 5 gigs of data plus mobile hotspot. Do you know what you can do with 5 gigs of data? You can browse the internet for 135 hours, stream 1,000 songs, or watch 10 hours of video. Folks, stop overpaying for wireless. Get 5G coverage with Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/LEVIN. Switching is painless. It's easy. There's no contract, no activation fee. You can even keep your phone and your number. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month on top of all the other savings when you sign up with Pure Talk.
The only constitutional lawyer you can see today. For free. No appointment necessary. Just call him at 877-381-3811.
By the way, Saturday's Life, Liberty, and Levin, 8 p.m. Eastern, is a brand new show. You'll see me without my jacket because I'm sitting in a wheelchair and I can't properly dress, but I will have a nice shirt on, Mr. Producer. It's a killer. Yeah, thank you. I know, me too. It's a killer opening statement, but also we have the great Victor Davis Hanson and Steve Moore, two real top guests. And so I hope you'll set your DVR. I hope you'll watch it Saturday night, Eastern Time, 8 p.m. And it's really my first live show in 2 weeks, I guess. Maybe 3. Merrick Garland is a sanctimonious, let me just leave it at that, fill in the blank. He's done more to destroy the United States Department of Justice than any attorney general I can think of, even in the Nixon years, even in the Johnson years. Well, maybe not. They did put in illegal wiretaps and so forth. Well, let me put that aside. But Merrick Garland is a man who is angry, who's a man that believes that he had a seat on the Supreme Court that was his God-given right, and thank God he never got it. And he has used the Department of Justice against parents. He's used the Department of Justice against pro-lifers in ways we've never seen before. He has used the Department of Justice by having the U.S. Marshals stand down rather than to protect Supreme Court justices when they're being harassed at their homes. He's used the Department of Justice, first and foremost, to try and destroy Donald Trump. He appoints special counsel in violation of his own regulations and in violation of the federal Constitution. So say two former attorneys general, Meese and Mukasey. And there he is today, spewing off sanctimoniously about how they're so fantastic, how Lady Justice is in the House, how every single employee at the Department of Justice is an angel, how he and his band of radical Marxist reprobates. It is the worst senior staff at the Department of Justice in American history. One bomb-throwing kook after another. How they're just so fantastic. Let's dip in. Cut one, Mr. Producer. Go.
For us, adhering to these policies, principles, and norms in everything we do is how we fulfill the promise that is foundational to our democracy.
Norms? You jerk. You don't adhere to norms. You're abnormal. The whole damn department has become abnormal. Like I said, we want normalcy back in our government. We want normalcy back in our society. You jerk. You unleash the FBI. You unleash prosecutors. You unleash SWAT teams. You jerk. Remember how they went after Roger Stone? Remember how they went after Paul Manafort? I remember it all. I don't forget anything. Now they're going after Rudy. Oh, yeah. Bannon's sitting in jail. Navarro had to go to jail. Meanwhile, this jerk is held in contempt. I don't think I'm going to prosecute myself. They're having to drop cases now because they intentionally twisted the language. 1512, an obstruction statute that had to do with documents in Enron. Had nothing to do with January 6th. I told you that years ago. Nothing to do. The Supreme Court tells them, now they're slow walking it. Well, we'll take a close look. You jerk. You went after Georgia because you didn't like their voting law, which was perfectly legal, and wound up with more people voting? You jerk. You've gone after states because they don't vote the way you want them to vote on abortion? You jerk. You haven't enforced our immigration laws and secured our border? You haven't kept our people safe? Gotta hear from you, you schmuck. We keep, he sounds like Mr. Magoo, doesn't he, Mr. Producer? Go ahead.
Will be protected equally under the law, and that all people will be held accountable equally under the law. Our norms...
Except Joe Biden. Well, what about Hunter, Mark? Hunter was given a sweetheart deal if it wasn't for a federal judge in Wilmington who had guts. Hunter would be walking the streets today with his drugs and his whatever. That's what he'd be doing. Hunter got a sweetheart deal, but a judge put an end to it. Who do they think they're kidding? Look at Biden, Joe Biden. Joe Biden should be in prison for 300 years. Joe Biden should be walking out there in the prison courtyard, banging his head on the wall. Oh, there's Joe. Yeah, leave him alone. He's shuffling around there. Yeah, that's Joe. Remember him? Oh, yeah, Joe. Who truly did violate the Espionage Act as a United States Senator, as Vice President of the United States. As you know, it's my view that a president cannot violate the Espionage Act, but that's just my view, which happens to be true. But Biden was a senator when he absconded with top secret information out of the Senate vault. We can't prosecute him. Why? He's an imbecile. And all the same media and all the same Democrats said, that was a cheap shot. And then a few months later, they're getting rid of the guy because why? He's an imbecile. And then his vice president, he's trying to make money off a book. Look at this. Ooh, you were told to return all the time. I know, but look what I have. I kept note cards. Aren't you a little devil? Yes, I kept note cards. See this? That's right. We were in the Situation Room in a top secret meeting on Afghanistan, and I kept these notes. For my legacy, of course. I know, but that violates federal law, the Espionage Act. What's the Espionage Act? What do I care? Nobody's going to catch me. Catch me if you can. Hey, have I shown you my Corvette Stingray? I've got more documents down there, too, in a box. Yeah, right there. You're not allowed to have it in a box. Doesn't matter. Now, this is before he was president. You understand? He gets millions of dollars. I think it was $8 million for an advance for a ghostwriter to write a book because Joe can't write a book because he can't read a book. So he gets $8 million in advance. And part of that, from the publisher, he needed secrets. You see, he needed something to say that hadn't been said before. That hadn't been said before. And now there he is. He's on the beach. He's in the White House. He's putting the MAGA hat on. He doesn't know what the hell's going on. But don't worry. He's 12 inches away from the red button, the nuclear button. Don't worry. Don't worry. He's okay. He just can't be prosecuted, and he just can't be president. But he can be president right now. What are you talking about? This is the idiocy that we live in. The Democrat Party media, their collusion. We have a man that they said can't run. Okay, then he ought not be president. Oh, yes, he can. What the hell are you talking about? We have a vice president who never got a single vote. She's the Democrat Party presidential nominee. She covered up for him. And now we're told, didn't she have a great debate? Oh, my God, she's a great... Who knew? Who knew? She mumbled. She had gibberish. She's an idiot. The worst vice president American. But, boy, she had a great debate. I'll tell you what. Yeah, now we need another debate. Yeah, let's debate the debates. Who is it good for? Shut up. Shut up. Cut two, Mr. Producer. Go.
We must treat like cases alike.
I just named Biden and Trump. Now, have they treated the like cases alike when it comes to documents? Have they, America? We must treat like cases alike. But you don't, you jackass, do you? Go ahead.
Rule for friends and another for foes. One rule for the powerful and another for the powerless.
I don't know. What did they do? Take out the dictionary of what? Fortune cookie statements, Mr. Producer? For a foe and a friend, like cases need to be treated like. Who's the speechwriter they have? Another imbecile. Go ahead.
One rule for the rich and another for the poor.
One for the poor.
One rule for Democrats and another for Republicans. Or different
speech. Go ahead.
Depending on one's race or ethnicity.
Color, creed,
to the contrary, we have only one rule. Yes. We follow the facts and apply the law in a way that respects the Constitution and protects civil liberties.
No, you don't, you jackass. You schmo. Tell me, how many illegal aliens have you prosecuted? None. Tell me, how many of these anti-Semites, these River to the Sea, Hitler Youth, Hamas-funded professors have you gone after? Tell me, how many student visas have you revoked from any of the Hitler Youth that we've imported into this country from the Middle East and elsewhere. None. None. You don't uphold the law, you jerk. You jerk, you fraud, you phony, you fake. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
I'm going to let you in on a little wireless trick that can cut your cell phone bill in half every single month. Other major carriers want you to believe you need unlimited data so they can overcharge you. Here's the fact. Most of you are buying way more data than you'll ever need and you'll ever use. Pure Talk, my cell phone company, only charges you for data you actually want. Listen to this. For $25 a month, you can get unlimited talk, text, and 5 gigs of data plus mobile hotspot. Do you know what you can do with 5 gigs of data? You can browse the internet for 135 hours, stream 1,000 songs, or watch 10 hours of video. Folks, stop overpaying for wireless. Get 5G coverage with Pure Talk. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's puretalk.com/Levin. Switching is painless. It's easy. There's no contract, no activation fee. You can even keep your phone and your number. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month on top of all the other savings when you sign up with Pure Talk. We're trying to get back to a normal strength here, America. So, I'm doing more than the physicians want me to do, but I'm doing what I need to do. And we'll put in our 2 hours tonight. I wanted to get in 3. That's not going to happen. So Ben Ferguson who's terrific, will fill in for the 3rd hour. I told you my surgery is Tuesday. We'll see how that goes. But my goal is to get completely back in the saddle as quickly as possible. And I will do that because there's just too damn much at stake. And the way I view it, there's people suffering a hell of a lot more than I am, even though I definitely am suffering. But there's people who are suffering more. And they don't look back, and I'm not going to look back either. One more dip into Merrick Garland. It'll be the last one, I promise. Cut 3, go.
In addition to seeing how you have operated in the face of dangers like violent crime and terrorism, I have also seen how you have bravely carried on in the face of an unprecedented...
Let's slow down. I used to work at that department. I believe there's over 60,000 employees there now, maybe closer to 90,000. He hasn't seen a damn thing. I mean, it includes the Bureau of Prisons, it includes the U.S. Marshals, the U.S. Attorney's offices, it includes the Antitrust Division, the Civil Division, the Civil Rights Division. I can go on and on and on. It is a massive organization, getting more massive by the day. And he had an obligation, and still does, to run it faithfully, and he does not. I've never heard an attorney general give a speech like this. He gives a speech like this in order to try and rewrite his history and the history of what he and his fellow comrades have done in that department. They see that the time is coming where he will no longer be attorney general, no matter who wins. And so now they're in the business of legacy creating. I've seen how you work. Each and every one, he hadn't seen a damn thing. All these decisions made against Trump, which are extraordinary. In the middle of an election, even if there's no election, a SWAT team, all these things that they did, so over the top. As a former chief of staff to an attorney general of the United States, I can tell you right now, we never would have done these things, period. Not just because they look so awful, but because they're just damn wrong. And this is why the Supreme Court and real federal judges, like Aileen Cannon, unlike this Tanya Chunkin in D.C., are having to corral this Department of Justice in order to bring the law back in line with the Constitution. He doesn't mention that every time they've gone to the Supreme Court, they've lost. Every damn time. He doesn't mention that a federal judge in Florida ruled that his appointment of Jack Smith was unconstitutional. In fact, they're very angry about that. He doesn't mention that the abuse of the obstruction statute 1512, which was for document destruction, he doesn't mention that they rewrote that law to Jack Smith. This is what he does. This is what he's good at. Actually not that good at it. And applies it against American citizens, that the Supreme Court threw that out. He doesn't mention any of this. He doesn't mention that there is such a thing as immunity. I mean, members of Congress have immunity. It's right there under the Constitution. President can't act without immunity. 3 knuckleheads on the Supreme Court, the three blind mice. I can't call them women because we're not allowed to call them women. So whatever they are, women, I guess. They don't have a problem with that, but everybody else does. They lost on that too. So that's the nature of this Department of Justice. It's a Department of Injustice, which is the nature of this administration, by the way. It'll only be worse under Kamala Harris. This I can guarantee you. Well, folks, I love you. I appreciate you. I'm blessed that you're out there. I want to thank all of our affiliates. I want to thank Sirius Satellite. I want to thank everybody. And now comes, after the top of the hour, my dear friend Ben Ferguson. Don't go away. He's terrific. See you tomorrow.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Welcome. It is the Mark Levin Show. Mark, as you know, is with you for those first 2 hours, and he is going to take a rest after his injury. And let me just say, God bless Mark for coming in here. This is how much he loves this country, and he loves you guys, his audience. Still trying to make it every day and getting you the info you need. It just speaks to how much passion he has, how much he loves you guys. And just how much he cares about this country. So putting in 2 hours, there's a lot of people that would not be doing that right now, recovering from the injury that he had. And it is an honor to be with you for the next 55 minutes. Donald Trump has come out, and he has come out with a new plan. And a new plan that is adding on to his no tax on tips. That was a big plan. He then came out and talked to seniors and said no tax on Social Security. It's a simple but brilliant idea. Well, there's another group of people in this country that also need some relief, and that is those that work extremely hard. When I say extremely hard, I'm talking about those that work overtime. I've worked overtime in my career several times, and when you hit that 40-plus hours, you are busting your tail. You are trying to either get ahead, or you're trying to provide for your family, or you're trying to get out from under debt. I don't know anyone that works overtime that isn't trying to accomplish something significant in their life, get rid of a debt, pay for a medical bill, or pay for school, or something significant. Because when you're willing to put in 45, 50, 55, 60 hours in a week, you are a great American who is just trying to provide for whether it's you, or your family, your kids, or something significant you're trying to do in your life. Donald Trump understands that. And Donald Trump came out and made this announcement about overtime. Listen carefully.
I'm also announcing that as part of our additional tax cuts, we will end all taxes on overtime. You know what that means? Think of that. Think of that. Think of that. That gives people more of an incentive to work. It gives the companies it's a lot easier to get the people. And, you know, I went to some economists, great ones, and I said, what do you think? They said, it would be unbelievable. You'll get a whole new workforce by doing that. No taxes on overtime. The people who work overtime are among the hardest working citizens in our country. And for too long, no one in Washington has been looking out for them. Those are the people that really work. They're police officers, nurses, factory workers, construction workers, truck drivers, and machine operators. It's time for the working man and woman to finally catch a break, and that's what we're doing because this is a good one. And I think it's going to be great for the country. So that's why we will be saying that if you're an overtime worker, when you're past 40 hours a week, think of that. Your overtime hours will be tax-free. Okay, good. You're going to have it, too. And unlike Biden, where he tells you that you don't have to pay your school tuition and he gets rejected, then he goes again and again. Now it's totally gone. Or as they say in politics, it's debunked. It's gone. That was terrible. You know, he kept saying to these students, no more loans, no more loans, which was very unfair to the millions of people that actually paid off their loans over the years. Some of them took 20 years to pay them off. But that's a dead deal. That's totally dead. You know, they tried to revive it 2 weeks ago. That didn't work out too well. That's a totally dead deal. But these will be three things that will get done. So if you think about no tax on tips, think of that. Think about this. And the Social Security for our seniors, because the seniors have been destroyed by inflation. It's unfair. And this is like a whole new life for them, because you're talking about a lot of money. So no tax on Social Securities for our great seniors. And this last one is no tax. You work your ass off, no tax on overtime. And that's so good for the employers. One of our economists said, I think that's actually going to bring money into our economy. You know, when I cut taxes, we had the largest tax cut in history. And when I cut taxes with a much lower rate the following year, we took in more money than we ever took in with a much higher rate. People, the jobs, people work by a lot.
This is a very big moment. And I think this is a brilliant moment where he says no tax on overtime. There are a lot of Americans, this is going to be real relief for them. And you notice the difference, by the way, in the mentalities between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. Donald Trump wants to help you. Kamala Harris wants to own you. She wants you to be poor so that you're dependent on her. She wants you to be poor so that you have to depend on her for everything, from food stamps to your health care, to your housing subsidies, to your school lunch program for your kids. She wants you to be dependent on her for the down payment on your first house, with her idea of, oh, we're just going to give you $25,000. Really? You're gonna give me $25,000? What do you think is going to happen to the price of homes? They're going to instantly go up $25,000. This is the problem that we have right now in this country. There are two mindsets. One is, I want you to help yourself, and I want you to succeed on your own, and I don't want you to live on government aid, because if you live on government aid, that means you are by definition failing. You cannot support yourself. You are needing a handout, and that means by default that you are living in poverty. And that is where Democrats get their power and get their control over you, because they own you like a modern-day slave. You then are needing them for every part of your life. And then when it comes to election season, what happens? You got to vote for them, because without them, you're afraid you won't survive. You want to know why Donald Trump was the biggest threat to the Democratic Party? Because under Donald Trump, you had the lowest unemployment rate in history for African Americans. You had the lowest unemployment rate in history for single mothers. You had the lowest unemployment rate in history for young African American men. You had the lowest unemployment rate among Hispanic Americans in history. Now, many of the groups I just mentioned have been overwhelming supporters of the Democratic Party. This was a threat to the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party was losing control of the minority voters, which they desperately need to guarantee on Election Day. And that was the big threat to them. And so now you look at what Donald Trump is doing this time. This is another threat. This is a very big threat, because this is about empowering you to be able to take care of yourself. This is about empowering you to be able to provide for your family, not through a government check, but through your own work ethic. If you're busting your tails and you're in a job with tips, he's saying, I don't want to tax your tips. He's saying, I want you to succeed. There's a lot of voters that work on tips that vote for Democrats. They're now going to be looking at Donald Trump. Okay, that's a fact, number one. But number two, there's a lot of Americans that work hourly wage jobs, who work overtime to make ends meet, who work overtime to try to get ahead, who work overtime to try to save for a down payment on a home. Like the list goes on and on and on. And they're going to hear this story from Donald Trump and they're going to go, wait a second. Donald Trump wants me to succeed and wants to reward me for working my tail off, unlike the Democrats who say, go work overtime, I'm still going to take a bunch of your money. Go work overtime, and I'm going to get even more of your cash at a higher rate per hour. That's what the Democrats want to do. That's the Democrats' plan for you. This is a form of politics that I think this country has been missing for quite some time. And it's simplifying things, not making things complicated on purpose, but simplifying things. And that is exactly what Donald Trump is doing. He's simplifying things. Who should be rewarded? People that work overtime, we should not make their lives harder. We should make their lives easier, because guess what? They're not on the government dime. They are clearly trying to take care of themselves. We should advocate and support people that are trying to do exactly that. If you're a senior citizen on Social Security, we shouldn't be taxing your Social Security. It makes no sense. How do we allow for seniors to live with dignity at the end of their life and not be worried and stressed out all the time? This is a great way of doing it. You work for tips, you work hourly, you work overtime. We're on your side. We are on your team. This is who we are, and we want to help you. We want to advocate for you. We want to support you. That is what this is all about. I think this is a very significant moment in his campaign. When you look at that compared to what Kamala Harris is offering, and what is Kamala Harris offering? She's offering you a whole lot of different things. She's offering you government aid and support so that you are kept on her dime, where she can control you. You're under her thumb. That's not freedom. That's modern day slavery. I want to get your phone calls in here. 1-877-381-3811. 1-877-381-3811. Ben Ferguson filling in for Mark Levin. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Welcome back. It is the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson filling in for everyone for this last hour as he was here for the first two, being an incredible patriot for this country, trying to recover from this injury, and God bless him. He is going to be back with you, I think, again tomorrow as he is continuing to fight through this, and he's a man that loves his country, and I have so much respect for him, but especially when you're injured and you're still getting in here. Radio's hard, folks. Like, when you got to entertain and you got to fight, and you're sitting here, and it is taxing. And for him to just want to come in here, even when he feels as bad as he does, is amazing. So keep saying prayers for Mark and his recovery. You look at this new tax plan from Trump. No tax on tips, we knew that. This new one, no tax on overtime, amazing. No tax on Social Security. And we're taking it back to the basics. But I say that there's two different mindsets here. Who's Kamala Harris advocating for? I wish I was joking when I say what I'm about to say, but I'm not. Kamala Harris, you know who she's looking out for? She's looking out for sex workers, that she wants to decriminalize it. So if you've got a daughter and, you know, she decides, hey, I need to make some ends meet, so I'm gonna start turning tricks and be a prostitute. You've got an advocate in Kamala Harris. In her own words, in 2019.
Do you think that sex work ought to be decriminalized?
I think so.
I do. When you're talking about consenting adults, I think that, yes, we should really consider that we can't criminalize consensual behavior as long as no one is being harmed. But at the point that anyone's being harmed or exploited, then I think we have to understand that's a different matter.
You think no one that's ever done prostitution has been exploited, Kamala? Do you know how many young ladies work in prostitution and sex trafficking because they're addicted to drugs or alcohol? They have an addiction. Or they deal with mental health issues and they're exploited, like, oh, well, here, just go do this and I'll give you your next fix. You don't think that's exploiting an adult? Because I'm sure she would say, well, I'm consenting, right? I need the cash. I need to get my next hit. There is a difference in morals here that we're talking about. There's a difference in a country here that we're talking about. There is two different choices here, and they've never been more extreme from one another. Kamala Harris calls for decriminalizing of sex workers and says, well, there's no real harm here as long as they're consenting. The problems in the sex exploitation industry are pretty well known, and a lot of it boils down to addiction and drugs and alcohol and pills and mental health issues. That's what Kamala is saying for our young girls in this country. By the way, while also saying to young girls in this country, hey, go change in the locker room with a dude that's got a penis that claims he's a chick. Go compete with a dude that has a penis who says it claims he's a chick. She's not protecting young girls in any capacity. Hey, yeah, I'd love for you guys. Come on down. Y'all need to be prostitutes. Go out there and work the streets and be a hooker. I'm not going to keep you from doing that with your life. What woman? And the scary part is here, this could be the first woman president, and the first woman president saying, I want more women to be able to go out there and be prostitutes. That is what you're going to get in your first female president? And I'm going to make sure dudes get to change in the locker room and compete against your daughters and granddaughters in sports and take away their life's work in sports at the Olympics? And in colleges at the NCAA level? I understand how Kamala Harris got her start in politics, and if you don't know the history, go back and look at it. So maybe that's why she has this idea in her mind that she wants to decriminalize sex workers. Okay? But I don't think that's a good plan for every woman in America. Call me old-fashioned, but I don't think that's how this is going to fix the country and the problems that we have in this country. Let me also remind you of just how vile the Democratic Party is. The Democratic Party is so vile now, and I'm going to remind you of what the Democratic Party said about Dick Cheney. The same Dick Cheney that Kamala Harris now says, and this is my point about selling out to anything or anyone if you think it'll let you get ahead. Kamala Harris said this week during the debate, I am proud to be endorsed by Dick Cheney. Do you remember what Democrats said about Dick Cheney back in the day? And I'm not defending Dick Cheney right now. I'm pointing out to how quickly Democrats will be opportunists. So if they think that they can make money off of women prostituting themselves and being in sex work, they'll do it as long as they can tax it. They're not here to help you or your young daughters. Hell no. I'm here to make a buck. I'm basically a pimp that always gets paid. I am the pimp of every... Think about this. If Kamala Harris has her way with the sex workers, for example, she is the pimp of every sex worker. We get a cut of every trick that's turned because she's the government. Let that sink in real quick. I'm also going to come back and play for you what Democrats used to say about Dick Cheney compared to now what they're saying about Dick Cheney. These people are soulless, folks. This is a fight for our country's future at a level you can't even understand until you hear these people and listen to what they say. Ben Ferguson filling in for Mark Levin. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin, the champion of liberty and true conservatism. Call Mark now, 877-381-3811.
Welcome back. It is the Mark Levin Show. Ben Ferguson with you, filling in for the great one, Mark Levin. Don't forget, you can send me your comments right now if you can't get through on the phones. At Ben Ferguson Show. And the audio I just played of the prostitution clip, I just posted it on X. Share it. People need to know that's what she wants to do to your daughters. As long as she can make a dime off of them, she'll be your daughter's pimp. Go share it. On X, Ben Ferguson Show. I'll also put it up on Instagram, Ben Ferguson Podcast, and also grab my podcast if you don't mind. I'd love for it to keep up with you on my podcast, Ben Ferguson Podcast, as well. Before I play for you, by the way, the point I was making a moment ago about just how vile the Democrats are, and a perfect example of this is what they said about Dick Cheney before he endorsed Kamala Harris, and it shows you how they have no values at all. Let me just remind you, and I'll go back to the taxes just to put it in contrast real quick. When Donald Trump comes out and says, I'm trying to help Americans succeed, no tax on tips. Now this new proposal, no tax on overtime. No tax on Social Security. Do you want to know why that matters right now so much? A gallon of orange juice, 121 ounces, 128 ounces, excuse me, was under $3 in 2020 of January. It's now $4.50. Coffee, 12 ounces of coffee, was $5.99. Now it's $8.99. White bread was $1.49. Now it's $1.99. That's a 33.5% increase. Eggs were $1.49. Now they're $2.99 or more. That's a 100% increase. Chicken breasts have gone through the roof. I used to buy it for $2.99 a pound. I paid $7.25 the other day. I don't know where you live. It could be different. Ground beef through the roof now, $6.99, $7.99. Rice, $1.50 now a pound. It was under $1 when Donald Trump was president. You look at these numbers and you see these major increases. This is exactly why so many people are looking at Donald Trump and they say, you know what? My life was better when he was president of the United States of America. And let me also just talk about how soulless they are. And I go back to the point I was making a moment ago. You know, he came out and it was a big deal, right? Because Kamala Harris got endorsed by Dick Cheney. Now, I told you, and I explained to you before, I'll say it quickly. Dick Cheney got his feelings hurt because his daughter got kicked out of Congress. She challenged Donald Trump. She lost. Donald Trump decided to go after her seat with someone that was a conservative. And she basically was out of there. She lost her job. The Cheneys no longer have influence in the Republican Party. It was the end of a dynasty, okay, of 40 years of Cheney. And Liz is a hardcore lefty. We all know that. But let me remind you what the left said about Dick Cheney when he was in power. And the fact that now they're telling you that like Dick Cheney's a great guy just tells you they have no principles. What did they call him?
I actually have the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney.
Dick Cheney and Satan. That's next.
The Sith Lord is back.
Like a demon, it rises again.
Dick Cheney, Darth Vader, Satan.
Thank you to Satan for giving me inspiration on how to play this role.
We don't need Dick Cheney.
Dick Cheney was dangerous. That war.
The only thing you got to do is just be better than Dick Cheney.
I like to see Dick Cheney exposed. He's a liar.
I actually have the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney.
You were part of the Dick Cheney cult that led to hundreds of thousands of innocent Iraqis being killed because of the cult you were in.
Cheney dishonestly made up the idea they had nuclear weapons. Just lied. Why do they want these wars? What is it that they don't like somebody because they don't like the look of their face?
Irrelevant national embarrassments, Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney.
I'm old enough to remember Dick Cheney driving over to the CIA to look over their shoulders to make sure they gave him the intel that he wanted so as to justify the Iraq war.
I actually have the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney.
No apologies, no regrets from former Vice President Dick Cheney for the harsh CIA interrogation techniques.
Under Dick Cheney's tutelage, we got the photographs at Abu Ghraib.
The former vice president, at one point, signing a waterboard kit.
Cheney, of course, unrepentant. You know what? Go to hell.
I want to talk about a man rotten to his very core, which is in itself a tiny black hole from which no joy or light can escape. The ancient Coptics knew this man as Unhotep The dark one. The jagged-toothed forest demon who steals our children. We know him as former Vice President Dick Cheney.
I actually have the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney.
What do you think of Dick Cheney? And people would say, well, I hate everything he stands for.
I am someone fundamentally opposed to the politics of Liz Cheney and her father, Dick Cheney. I literally started writing books in the first place more than a decade ago because I had so much to get off my chest about what I thought was wrong with the Cheney family approach to war and foreign policy. That first book I ever wrote is literally dedicated to him.
Dick Cheney, profoundly dangerous.
Cheney, I think, was arrested twice.
A master manipulator like Dick Cheney, willing to say anything.
And now, as the cascade of misery and death and chaos he did so much to unleash rages anew, Mr. Cheney has the unadulterated gall to come before the country and tell us that it's all someone else's fault. You said there was no doubt Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. You said we would be greeted as liberators. You said the Iraq insurgency was in the last throes back in 2005. And you said that after our intervention, extremists would have to, quote, rethink their strategy of jihad. Now, with almost $1 trillion spent there, with 4,500 American lives lost there, what do you say to those who say you were so wrong about so much at the expense of so many?
No, I just fundamentally disagree, Reagan. Megan.
I actually have the endorsement of former Vice President Dick Cheney.
Dick Cheney. This is what the left thought of him. They called him Satan. They called him Hitler. But now, hold on a second. Kamala Harris gets an endorsement from a guy that has an R next to his name, and I enjoy the endorsement of Dick Cheney. I'm proud to be endorsed by Dick Cheney. You understand how dangerous it is that you can just let me just put it into perspective the best way I know how. If I'm running for office and Barack Obama endorsed me, I would denounce it. If I was running for office and Bill Clinton, forget Bill, Hillary Clinton, Michelle Obama, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden came out and endorsed me, I'd be like, no, I'm good. I don't want your endorsement. You and I are not the same. I believe in freedom. You believe in communism. I believe in freedom at a grocery store. You believe in price controls. I believe in allowing people to keep more of their own money. You believe the government should take everything. That you come second and the government comes first. Which brings me back to the less than 2 months of this campaign. Who is Kamala Harris is the question we all need to be asking ourselves right now. Who is Kamala Harris? She's a woman that doesn't know how to answer a question on the basic issues of the economy. I can tell you that. How do we know it? Because when she has been asked about the economy, she doesn't know how to answer a question about the economy because she doesn't understand how the economy works because she's a socialist. She believes in socialism. She doesn't believe in a free market society. How do we know this? Listen to her being asked when she was actually asked about inflation.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Jennifer Jacobs at Bloomberg. Okay, thank you. Hold on to it. Ma'am, the U.S. is experiencing record inflation, the worst in 30 years, way beyond expectations. OPEC didn't increase oil production. Can you tell us a little bit about how you would prevent the new spending and your Build Back Better agenda from exacerbating the problem? And also, what else are you going to do to fix this problem with inflation?
All right, thank you. Well, let's start with this. Prices have gone up. And families and individuals are dealing with the realities of that bread costs more, that gas costs more. And we have to understand what that means. That's about the cost of living going up. That's about having to stress and stretch limited resources. That's about a source of stress for families that is not only economic, but is on a daily level. something that is a heavy weight to carry. So it is something that we take very seriously, very seriously. And we know from the history of this issue in the United States that when you see these prices go up, it has a direct impact on the quality of life for all people in our country. So it's a big issue, and we take it seriously. And it is a priority, therefore. So we have addressed it in a number of ways. One of the issues that we know is related to this is the supply chain issue that we just discussed. And so on a domestic level, in terms of domestic policy, one of the approaches we have taken is to work with labor unions and to work with municipalities in opening back up and extending the hours of our ports. There are actually 3 I have in mind: Los Angeles, Long Beach, and Savannah.
You understand what she's saying here. She's giving you an answer about inflation that has nothing to do with inflation. She's giving you an answer which is, well, we've got these port issues and we got to open up ports longer, and I understand, but so here's what I'm going to do. I'm gonna do price controls at the grocery store. Well, that doesn't work. Okay, so let's give her a second shot at answering the question.
So these are some of the ways, but we've got to increase the corporate tax rate. We also have to increase taxes for the top 1%. And that part of that is going to be about repealing that tax bill that they just passed. And also looking at estate taxes are going to have to go up.
No, okay, so you're about to raise taxes, the corporate tax rate, taxes for the top 1%, right? Because anybody that makes money is evil to her, and she wants to take their money. And then she says we got to repeal the tax bill that they just passed, referring to Republicans, and also looking at state taxes. So when your family has saved, already been taxed, and then has an estate, and someone dies, she wants to take another piece of that. At least she's consistent, right? She's wanting to take a piece of the sex workers as they're turning tricks, and she wants to take a piece of grandma and grandpa's house when they die. Like, I'll give her credit. At least she is consistent on this.
There were the naysayers, and they said, of course, well, how are you going to pay for that? That's what I heard. Well, I'll tell you guys how we're going to pay for that. On day one, we're repealing that tax bill benefiting the top 1%.
There it is. How are we going to pay for all this stuff? I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to take all your money. I'm going to take it from everywhere I can, from the people that are born to the people that are working, the people that they're doing overtime, the people that are working jobs for tips, and the people that are on Social Security, and the people that are dying. That's how I'm going to pay for my socialist agenda. That is who Kamala Harris is. And if we're going to win this election in less than 60 days, we have to do a better job of explaining her plan. She came out and she says, "Oh, I'm now in favor of a secure border." Really? Could have fooled me, because if I go back to the tapes, you're not about protecting my family, defending my family, protecting people from sex trafficking and drugs and dying from fentanyl and overdosing and getting addicted to a lifestyle that ends in death and destruction for you and everyone around you. But what did she actually say about the border?
Okay. Do you have any plans to visit the border?
At some point, we are going to the border. We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I don't understand the point that you're making.
And I haven't been to Europe. What happens when she goes to the border?
I am meeting with a lot of folks, and the work that we have begun is the work that is going to be ongoing. There is no question, and I said this from the very beginning, that our approach to this issue has to be with a commitment to a long-term investment, and it has to be a commitment to consistency. The United States has to be consistent. There were times when we were more engaged and we saw good results. Less engaged, and we can see where the work and the partnerships then deteriorate. So I am committed to ensuring that we engage in an active way on the root causes, on addressing the cause and effect, and also being partners in the Western Hemisphere, understanding that we have a responsibility, and if we ignore that responsibility, it will visit itself upon us in a very domestic way. So thank you.
I don't even know what the hell that means. But what I do know is that is the answer you give when you have no plan of fixing the problem at the border. Ben Ferguson, filling in for the great one, Mark Levin. I want to get your phone calls. 1-877-381-3811. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Two things I got to get on your radar screen real quick. I'll throw both of these up on X, okay? I'm gonna tweet it right now. Number one, Fani Willis. You remember Fani Willis, whose boyfriend who'd never done a big case before got $1 million to do a big case? Remember that against Donald Trump, try to lock him up? Fani Willis, we're now being told, plans to defy subpoena and skip the Senate hearing testimony. The Fulton County District Attorney's Office attorneys fight with the Georgia Republicans expected to move now to the courts, but Fani Willis plans to defy the subpoena and skip that hearing there. Yeah, so much for, I'm all about transparency. Yeah, not so much. Also, Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal saying this moments ago about the assassination attempt on Donald Trump.
The American people are going to be shocked, astonished, and appalled by what we will report to them about the failures by the Secret Service in this assassination attempt on the former president. But I think they also ought to be appalled and astonished by the failure of more coming, as it should be to them in terms of providing information. And we are going to absolutely insist on the truth and the whole truth in documents and testimony as members of the United States Senate, but also as citizens.
What did you learn new today? You said they're going to be appalled.
I'm not going to go into what we have learned in specifics. I'm giving you my reaction. And we will have a report very, very soon that I think will absolutely shock the American people, or it should, about the lapses and lags in the protection that was afforded that day and the breakdown in communication, failure in responsibility.
Is that report coming today or tomorrow?
I'm sorry?
Is that report coming out tonight or tomorrow?
No.
I'm interested to see this because I'm almost like, part of me is like, good. I'm glad there's a Democrat like Senator Richard Blumenthal that actually gives a crap. There's part of me that's like, really? Are they going to do this before the election and just show how inadequate our government is under the leadership of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden? Because this is going to be damning to them and the people that they chose to be in their cabinet to run these agencies. I'll be very interested to see that. I got that clip for you up also on X, Ben Ferguson Show. Don't forget, grab my podcast, Ben Ferguson Show, as well. Pray for Mark. He'll be back with you tomorrow.